The recording, thank you so much. Welcome everyone to our discussion today on modernizing your IT infrastructure with EdFi. We're going to do a technical deep dive. My name is Maureen Wentworth, and I'm our Strategic Partnerships Manager for the State Education Agency space. And with me today, your technical lead for this webinar and for all things EdFi is my colleague Sai Srinivasan. She's going to walk through the technical details of our SEA starter kit to help jumpstart projects in terms of modernizing IT infrastructure. We're really excited to have you here today, and I don't want to delay. I'm just going to do a couple of housekeeping items. We're excited to answer all of your questions, and so please feel free to utilize the Q&A portion of the WebEx screen today, or the chat. I'll be monitoring both as Sai goes through the presentation. We're also recording this, as you heard, and so we will be distributing that through our SEA newsletter that should go out tomorrow, I believe, in your inbox. And so if you missed something, want to record or want to review or share with a colleague, please be on the lookout for that. And if you don't get our newsletters, please go ahead and join us at edfi.org and sign up. And we'll be happy to connect with you, not too regularly, just enough to give you the right amount of information, we hope. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sai to start walking through the Modernize Your IT Infrastructure with EdFi Starter Kit. Sai? And I think you might still be muted.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you, Maureen. Last time, we touched on the two use cases that we are covering on the SEA Modernization Starter Kit side, right? The first one is the membership, and the second one is the special education student count. At a high level, the use cases that count all of the students who are at least half-time enrolled in a public school district. That's what the membership use case requires. And on the special education student use case, the total number of students who are receiving special education services as of October 1st, ages from 5 through 21 years of old. So the two use cases we're solving as part of this modernization starter kit. First, I want to go through the Tech Talks document and show you where it is located, just in case if you're joining the very first time to this webinar. If you have not attended the first one, this is the place to go and refer to the document. So let me show you. If you go to our Tech Talks and you search for the SEA Modernization Starter Kit, under the search link, you will be coming up with this document. And this gives you all the insights about, let me just go back here. It gives you the two components that are already part of this SEA Modernization Starter Kit, the Quick Start Guide and the Setup Guide. So what the Quick Start does is it provides you a completely functional, out-of-the-box environment for you to learn the EdFi technology. So it's just a click of a button. That's totally true. It's just a click of a button. We're providing you those two use cases solution as part of this environment. And I won't be going into the details of this because we covered last session. This session, I'm mainly wanting to focus on the installation of these two components. That way we are addressing your technical questions versus at a very high level. So let me just go into my machine. And before that, I want to show you that where you can go ahead and create this quick guide version of the SEA Starter Kit. Under AMI, this is the Amazon machine image, and you need to have an Amazon account, and once you have that account, once you're logged in, you go into your AMIs and you search under public images. You search for the EdFi, and you will be provided with this EdFi SEA Modernization Starter Kit. So using this image, all you have to do is, and also make sure that you're pointing to the Ohio region, go ahead and launch it. And I'm not going to completely go through this process of launching it because I've done it. In here, you will be choosing this specification, the T2 specification. That was a specification we chose. So it's up to you to choose which specification that you want. So choose one of the specifications and review and launch. As soon as you're done with it, you are going to be with this environment. And what this does is, so in here, in this machine, all the components are there. So this has the API, this has the Swagger online documentation, and we've also created reports to go against the ODS to run the membership solution, and as well as the application student count reports. So I want to show you where those reports are located. In here, these are the 5 reports that we have generated. And you can go and take a look at it. This is, it provides a subpopulation report by grade, by race, by ethnicity, and then for the special education side, you by primary disability and special education setting. So those are the out-of-the-box reports provided. And if you launch the starter kit, right, and this gives you an option to go and API, the Swagger, and the admin app. And if you want to go into the details of each and every one of those, please go ahead and refer, which was done at overview of these individual sites, and also the documentation that are provided as part of this quick start guide. Now, what I want to do is I want to go back to the Amazon site and show you what to be doing for the binary installation of the setup guide. Let me give you the difference between the quick start and the setup guide. The quick start guide, as I mentioned, it is an out-of-the-box environment. Whereas the setup guide, we are letting you to follow certain set of instructions to create your own environment. This can be used as a pilot-ready environment where you can onboard your districts as well as your vendors. So that's the idea of it. And I would like to go through that binary installation step. So in here, what I have done is, I think it is beneficial if I show you what that setup guide documentation has. It shows you at a very high level the architecture of this, the data flow, right? You do have LEA systems that are sending the data via the Ed5 API and landing the data in the national data store. And you can API out, data out use cases that can be addressed off of the API based on the data that's there in the operational data store. And of course, you can generate reports that you have, that you're wanting to generate. And there are validations. If you look at the state education agency's implementation, there are validations or validation tools that they've set up to run level 2 validations against the data in the database. So this flow is this is the environment that we are going to be creating now. And it also gives you documentation on specific critical part of an SCA implementation. Number one is developing the specifications, right? State education agencies need to develop specifications so they can provide that to their vendors, and then the vendors can then be able to develop and make the integrations ready up. So as part of this, so what you do is you map between the Ed5 and what you're currently collecting before going by implement. Once you do that, you're going to be identifying your extension. And there are certain set of recommendations that you're creating the extensions. Of course, having a minimal set of extensions. Extensions are unavoidable in the state education agency space because you are mandated by policies and business use cases. So extensions, we've seen extensions do exist, but adhering to the core data is very much recommended. And one other area that I would like to mention here is, as much as possible, we want to minimize the business logic asks of the vendors. Try to consume the granular data and then do your calculations off of the granular data that you are having in your ODS. So the business logic can be done, should be done at the downstream end versus asking the vendors to do the business logic, because that's going to be time consuming and also costly for the vendors. And in fact, that boils down to the district's side. So we provide recommendations on what should you do and what should you not do. And coming into the installation of the Ed5 solution, there's specification on the recommended environment specs. So we've provided that in here. So there is that's available. For this session, we're going to be focusing on the year-specific installation. So you may be asking a question, what does that mean, right? Normally in state education agency side, because SEAs are compliance-oriented agencies, their reporting is mostly year-specific. So, and we have seen the successful implementations across many Ed5, this year-specific model. So we have provided guidance for you to do a binary installation based off of this setting. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through quickly what that comprises of, right? So if you go ahead and click on the binary installation instructions, right, there are 3 components that are needed as prerequisites for this work. One is the .NET Core runtime. So the database deploy tool that we are using requires that .NET Core runtime. So you need to be installing that prior to you installing your applications. And of course, IIS, this is going to be hosted under IIS, so you need to have the IIS installed. And then the third component that's needed in here is the hosting bundle. And the hosting bundle is having the .NET Core framework and .NET Core runtime, and then ASP.NET Core runtime, and then IIS modules for ASP.NET. So those are the ones. They've all been listed here in the order that this has to be installed. So these are the 3 prerequisites prior to you installing the applications of the binaries. So I am going to go into the year-specific mode. So what I have done here is I'm going to go into the VM or the EC2 environment in Amazon AWS that I've created, and I have done the prerequisites, and I'm ready to run the application. So I'm going to show you how that looks. Go through and your specific installation steps. I have it. And we have provided these 3 applications as part of our NuGet package. So you would be downloading these 3 packages, renaming them to zip files, and then unblocking them and extracting them. So that's the step that you would be doing. And I am going to show you where I on my computer. So in here, so these are the zip files, and I unzip them in here. So step is installing the databases, right? We want to make sure that settings are properly set. I'm going to show what the configuration settings of interest. We want to make sure that our strings are pointing to the right server database. So obviously, another key point here is I have done this in a single model. It's being tested for the 2 server models also. But for this presentation, I am showing you the single server model, which means that you're going to have your API and your database on the same machine. So I'm using the server configuration as a local, and of course, my actual database is going to be Ed5, and this is going to be plugged in here, the Ed5 ODS 2020 or 2021, and so on. And so there are 3 databases that come as part of this installation. One is the ODS database that has the actual student data. And then the other one is the security database one that's used for providing. So we have many resources, and vendor systems need to have access rights to those individual resources. So claims and permissions and authorizations are driven off of this space. An admin database.
Sai, real quick, can we turn off your camera real quick because it's getting a little choppy and maybe that will help with audio? Hate to interrupt, but there you go. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. The admin database is the one. Is that better now? The admin database is the one for issuing the key and secret for the vendor systems. Then in here, what I have done is there are two ways you can have the database. One is with the populated sample data set, without the populated sample data set, right? Without the populated sample data set is called the minimal data set. What it'll have is only the code tables. Just the descriptors are the ones that are going to be populated, not the actual student data. For the purpose of this demonstration, I want to have a populated data set, so I have the as populated. Lauren, is it good now?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. So then the scripts for populating or the database is the minimal template script, as well as the grand band for the populated templates script. And if you notice here, we have the year specific configuration, and I'm using SQL Server. Agencies have the option to use either SQL Server or Postgres. And then you have the ODS token in here. If you specify the parameter here, that means that it is going to be creating a database with the suffix of this year. So this is where that year specific. So you can have many cases as long as you comma separate these entries in here, 2020, comma 2021. Then in that case, it'll create ed5 ODS 2020, ed5 ODS 2021. So that's about the configuration file. So I am going to be running the scripts right now. So we finished the configuration file, and we loaded the modules, and I'm running my database. It's going to take a few minutes. So what it's doing is it's resetting the admin database, it's resetting the security database, and it's resetting the actual ed5 ODS database. While it is doing that, I am going to walk you through the rest of the steps. So for this session, we'll be doing the database, the web API, and the Swagger. It needs to have the NuGet provider, so it's downloading the NuGet provider and installing it. Sorry, it is taking a little bit longer expected. So yeah, it is resetting at the last end, tail end of this, the ODS database. Okay, so that's done. And next one is going to be our API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my API directory. I am going to be running my I'm going to be importing all my repositories. So I've loaded both my ODS repository and my implementation repository. And I want to pass my parameters, right, for my API. So this one says that my version of the API is going to be 5.2. My database connection string is SQL Server and connected, and it's local host, and installation type is going to be year specific. So once that is done, let's install the API. So what is happening in here is it is installing all of the IIS. So there's the basic web server component needs to be installed. As I said, it's a prerequisite. And then this will go and install the rest of the IIS features, and it'll make sure that the certificate is being installed, and it'll make sure that that certificate is moved to the root certificate store. And also it'll make sure that the anonymous authenticate, it'll create all of those three applications, the web API application, the Swagger. In this case, I'm not going to go into the admin app installation, but if you do that, then that will be an application also under your IIS. So it'll make sure that both of those applications are created as IIS applications, and it'll enable anonymous authentication, and it'll disable the Windows authentication. So those are the steps that are happening in here. So that's going to take some time. While it is taking that, I want to show you the end solution of the API installation. So let me just go into my next machine where I have already done this. So I'm going to go into my IIS. This is, so it'll create a virtual directory at 5. Under that, you're going to have these two applications, the Swagger UI and the Web API. And when you run the Web API, what you're going to be seeing is this information. So it's telling you what version of the API it is, and what are the dependencies, what is the data standard that, so this is the actual version of the API. This is the data standard version, and what mode it is running under, and what is the build, and those are all details. But other things like, okay, what are the dependencies that are there in here? And of course, your authorization, is where your clients will be authenticating them using the key and secret. So the different URLs are being provided. And once you do that Swagger installation, this is the actual online documentation surface. It's showing you all of the resources that are part of the API, right? And one would be authenticating themselves using the authorize button. And of course, I am already authenticated here. So there's a key and secret that we generated for this purposes, and it comes as part of the instructions. So you'll be able to connect using that key and secret. I'm going to go back to see whether it's done installing the API. So yes, it is done. So, and of course, another thing is it will create, because everything is on the local machine, it will create the app pool for you. As I said, there's a sub-signed certificate that's being done, and websites are being created, and authentication is being set for anonymous. So we're done with that. Now let's just go into the into IIS to see if we could pull up our site. So yes, so this is our API. Now I'm going to go into our Swagger installation. So I'll walk you through the Swagger installation quickly. The API is done. Swagger installation, I am going to, once again, import the module. I want to be in the right folder. Okay, so I loaded the repositories. And if you take a look, this needs the web API URL. So we need to be modifying this web API URL based on what API URL is. So I am going to copy this. And that's my API URL. Take that. Now you're going to be installing your Swagger. This should go pretty quickly. I am leaving the admin app installation intentionally here because it takes a little longer and we wouldn't be able to fit within the 20 minutes or the 30 minutes timeline. So, but of course the instructions are there in step number 5. I highly recommend you to go through that step also so that you can see how admin app can be used for authenticating your vendors and also browsing your claim sets and also browsing the education organizations that are there as part of the database. Okay, so that's done. Let's go ahead and run the let's go ahead and run the Swagger UI from our site. Okay. I wouldn't be able to, so if you take a look at it, I haven't created the key and secret. So I am going to come back with an error message. So that's the error, right? There's invalid client. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a key and secret quickly. And we have provided a SQL script for creating that test key and test secret. That's there as part of the year specific installation document. So let me go into the databases. Oh, I didn't show you the databases. I'm going to refresh the database and show you those 3 databases. If you look at it, this 2021, that's coming as part of the configuration setting we did on the database side. So I am going to be running this. This is under admin, obviously, because that is the database responsible for the authentication. My test key and my secret are in here. You don't need to every time type the key and secret when you're authorizing. So there's that, if you go ahead and make that change to your app settings.json file under Swagger UI, you will be able to use that. It'll automatically be populated there. So I am going to go into my site. Under inetpub, www.root, f5, and Swagger, and then app settings.json file. And if you look at it, see, this is the key and secret. So copy that. Paste it there. Save this file. And now we should go and refresh our Swagger UI, and it should come back with the test key and secret. So test key and secret, authorize. I want to just go and take a look at one resource, and the simplest resource that I always go is the schools. So I'm going to go there and do a get call on that. And that way you can see that this whole installation is working. So give it a try. Execute. Okay, so we retrieve the data from the database. So here's the local education agency, and here's the school ID. So this is coming from that sample database, the Ed5 ODS 2021. So this is the high-level overview of how you should be going about doing that setup guide and environment that you could make it as your pilot-ready environment for your vendors and for your districts to come on board with Ed5. With that said, I will pass the control back to Maureen.
Well, thank you, Sayi. That was great. A lot of work, and hopefully allows states to play around with the Ed5 data standard and technology suite in a real hands-on way. That's fantastic. I'll remind folks right now that if you have any questions for Sayi, please drop them in the chat. Or in the Q&A box. I don't remember which one you have have access to, or both. Either way, I'm looking for those, so please go ahead and put your questions in. I'm not seeing any right now, Sayi, so you must have been very clear and understandable in all of the overview. So that's wonderful. One of the other things I'll mention for folks on the line is that we are hoping to have a boot camp for state agency folks. So if you're interested in learning more and taking the starter kit to the next level, please go ahead and reach out to us or drop your email in the chat or Q&A. We'll get that set up and make sure that it gets out to folks to sign up for that on October 14th, 2021. So so that is in the works, and we'll get information out to you shortly on that. I am sorry, just looking in the Q&A, I see that a question has been asked, but I'm not seeing the question. Lauren, are you seeing the question? I've got an indication that I have questions in the Q&A box, but I can't see them. What's happening? There it is. Wonderful, thank you so much. So we have some interest in the boot camp, Sayi. So that's great. Thank you, and we will get that information to you shortly. In addition to the boot camp, we're also so excited to be able to host our Ed5 Summit again this year. We are hosting that both in person here in Austin and with a virtual component. So if you are able to travel or not, please join us November 15th through 18th for a fantastic event that will include a lot of best practices from the field, great state and district examples of Ed5 implementation, Ed5 use, and use cases to come, as well as for those of us in person, some great networking and opportunities just to connect and see humans in person. There are some robust protocols in place to keep everyone safe and healthy. And so you can find the rundown of that on our website, and the information to register, as well as the full agenda that was just released. So, so please check that out and join us if you can. Our our plenary sessions, thank you, sorry, keynotes and some of the session content will be available virtually as well for folks to join. I think I've tap danced enough, Sai. I'm not seeing any other questions on the content. So if you have any last thoughts for the audience, otherwise we will hope to see many of you at the boot camp and at the summit. Say anything to wrap up with?
So if it is going to be beneficial for the attendees, we can just do a follow-up email with the links to the modernization starter kit and the reference documents that I was showing for them to do the binary installation, Maureen. So if that's going to be of useful.
I think that would be fantastic. Thank you, Sai. All right, well, that wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again in the future at either another virtual event or potentially in person, either at Summit or sometime soon. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day and rest of your week. Bye-bye.